Mufti Amjad, could you just elaborate without getting too technical? I'm just being very careful about some of the attendees, and we don't want too much detail. Just explain in more clearer terms, rather than looking at the emotional aspects of this, because sometimes what we do is we sort of link in some of the opinions as being of emotional context, attach themselves to certain countries like Saudi Arabia and so forth. But there is obviously a more technical issue in this, in terms of maybe taking the concept of ru'ya as in the literal sense, or being able to take the astronomical data. Ru'ya meaning to sight the moon, in the literal sense, or astronomical data. Just give us a bit of elaboration on the principles that are used here for the sake of some of the attendees, so we get a bit of an understanding before we look at it from a different view.
Bismillah. The first thing to bear in mind is that this is a multi-component thing. The fact that, you know, for instance, we've gone into what is arguable the mistake that most people make is, should we take sighting from Morocco, or should we take sighting from Saudi Arabia? We as individuals cannot take sighting from anywhere. And this is where the confusion comes in. First of all, there has to be a method of individuals going out to look for the moon. So there has to be, so that's part one. Part one, there has to be a process where there is a ministry or some group of individuals who will send people out to see if they can spot the hilal. That's the first point. They must have some kind of legal authority. So if it's a Muslim state, then the Sultan or his equivalent must have given authority to a Qadi who is going to take this decision then. In the absence of that, for example, in Muslim minority situations, like we have in South Africa, like we have here in the UK, we have UK Hilal committees, which act similar. And we've seen the discussion in Ibn Humam's treatise about the fact that what do Muslims do as a minority when Cordoba and places like that were overtaken by the non-Muslims. So that's the first issue, is what's the method for people actually going out to detect the moon? The second thing is who is that shahada presented to? So because at the moment it's not a shahada, this has to be, because this is a judicial system. They are making a shahada. Shahada meaning, like we have for theft, like we have for zina, like we have for anything else, the hilal is also a legal matter, in that witnesses have to cite it and then go into the court of a qadi, of a judge, an Islamic judge. They then will go to the Islamic. So that's part two, is there a process for that? Part three is, does the qadi have a system in place? Now, a qadi's role is to question the witnesses. So if I again take the theft example, then they will be asked questions. Where were you? What time was it? Who did you see? Describe him to us. What do you consider theft to be? All these questions will be asked by the qadi from the witnesses until because he has to be absolutely certain that what this person is telling them is true. Once that is mentioned, then the qadi will make a decision. So that's stage 4, is that he makes a decision. Stage 5 is how does that decision reach people in the UK, people in France, people anywhere else for that matter. So you have a 5 area, separate area. The whole process though is a judicial process. And the whole process has to be, checks and balances have to be in place. And also it has to be sort of quality assured to ensure that when this statement, this khabar reaches, say for us here in the UK, that it's actually being validated. So this whole process has to exist. Ru'ya, for example, we see, for example, Rasulullah saying, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. Fa in humma alaykum ash-shahr fa'addu 30." That what you should do is you should look sumu li ru'yatihi, fast according to its sight. And sighting here is quite clearly ru'ya here, meaning is to sight. Some have then taken this argument that no, ru'ya can also mean astronomical data, for instance. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fil, "Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil." Do you not see how your Rabb dealt with the people of the elephants? So some have argued, look here, if, Rasulullah was born on the year of the elephants. How could he have seen what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did to them? So they say that clearly shows that this can be news of other times, which means astronomical data. We don't need to go out to sight the moon. We know when the moon is born. We can take a rough guess using these predictability curves and be able to determine it. That's not what Rasulullah is saying in this context, because he says, "Fasumu li ru'yati wa aftiru fa in hummi alaykum." If it's clouded over you, so this is clearly talking about vision, then count to 30 days. So sighting is absolutely paramount. But when it comes to the stage, for example, where the Qadi is now making a decision, he can use certain astronomical data to decide if what these people are telling him are the truth. For example, Shaykh Sulaiman mentioned that to sight the moon on the Wednesday, or the Tuesday night for Wednesday to be the first of Ramadan, the moon is actually on the horizon for 2 minutes. So the moon is on the horizon for 2 minutes. The sun will set and the moon will be on the horizon. The hilal will be on the horizon for 2 minutes. Now, when the sun sets, it takes approximately 30-35 minutes for the glow of the sun to be less than the light is now being reflected off the hilal on the moon. So it is impossible to be able to see that moon. Impossible. Now, we've seen from data that there are, and I don't necessarily want to go on a particularly bash the country, because I want to avoid that. But with this data that we've seen, where declarations have been made, where the actual moon has set before the sun has set. So that's an impossibility. So we can use that kind of data because we're using sunset data for Maghrib. We're using sunrise data for stopping Fajr. So we're using astronomical data already in our prayers. So we can use astronomical data to negate absolutely ridiculous witness statements. But there is something which falls into Imkani Ru'ya, and I don't want to get too technical on that. There is material available on our website and obviously on the various YouTube channels, which goes into a little bit more detail as to what is Imkani Ru'ya, what is the angle of elongation, what does ACRL stand for, what is altitude of the moon. It's a science. Like tayammum is a science, like mirath is a science, moon sighting is a science, and sadly we get lots of non-experts discussing it, and as a result give this very mix-mash understanding of it. Until you really study the subject, both from an astronomical perspective and from a fiqh perspective, folks should really hold opinion until hold back opinion until they've looked into that.